Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Oh, it's to have a full house here. Oh, all right. Well, we'll get started here. With that, I'll call the Damariscotta Select Board to order. For November 15th for a joint meeting with the Budget Committee for a workshop. We're missing one member right now, Andrea. Hopefully she comes in, but go from there. So, Dick, do you want to?
Meeting, and there are 7 of us, right? Look at that.
Shall we do introductions? So just so we remember who we all are. We cheat. We have got nameplates, so that's not fair. Switch them up on you. So,
Just look at it so you know who you were too. So,
The right seat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, so I'm Dick.
go ahead, Dick, yeah.
I'm the chairman of the budget committee. Anybody else want to?
Sorry, Sage, I'm a member.
Karen O'Brien, Vice Chair.
Bruce Rockwood, secretary.
Connie Magistrelli, just a plain old member.
Ron Heiser, member.
Mary Devlin, member.
thank you guys. Yeah. Go ahead. It's not down that end.
Joshua Finkel,
Yeah.
select board member.
And Daryl Frazier. Yeah. Moving on down.
Dan Hunter, select board member.
Tom Anderson, select board.
Andy.
All right. So you've gathered us here this evening to
Yes.
to go through a few things on the workshop. So before we get started, I'll just remind everybody, we do have our regular select board meetings starts at 5:30. So we'll try to get through what we can tonight, and if we have to table something or anything, but that take it away, Andy.
Perfect. So I had just kind of 3 things I just wanted to kind of put out there and have opportunity for discussion. It is that time of year. The committee did meet just about a month ago to discuss the provider agency policy that the board was working on. And I shared with them a tentative I think timeline at that point, perhaps, for the budget schedule. Just wanted to put that out there. Talk about if we're clear on how the voting of this year's articles will go, whether it's referendum vote on the Tuesday election day or whether it's on open town meeting floor. It just changes a little bit our timeline by about a couple weeks. And then to talk briefly about if there's a particular target or budget target that we should be mindful of as departments putting this together before we put all that effort in and feel there's disappointment, or if we can just talk briefly about that. So with that, I don't know if we wanted to start with the easy one on the warrant, voting on the warrant. Last year was on the open floor for the majority of the articles. The provider agency articles were by petition, so those were on the referendum ballot on Tuesday. I don't know if you wanted to echo that again or do something somewhat different. During COVID, you had the budget articles done by referendum. So I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for the board, but I think having the majority of it out to the floor as a referendum like we have, and then having those other articles on the vote the day before seems to work. I don't know what he feels about it, but
Because the problem is, if you put them on the ballot, then the ballot's what, 30 pages long or something?
It gets a little bit longer. I think historically it's, once you put it on that referendum on Tuesday's election, there's no opportunity for a discussion.
That's true.
yeah,
And so
that's the big part of it.
that being said, the numbers are dramatically different between Tuesday's participation at the poll and what we see typically at town meeting. And so there's kind of just a realization that when we know we want to try and get more people engaged and come to town meeting again, but you just don't have as many people participating in the voting process.
But it takes longer to vote, though.
It would, yep.
Again, personal opinion, not speaking for the committee on this. I understand the problem with the few people that show up and have wrestled with that for years. We've tried different things, and I'm not saying don't continue to try to make it work. But the people who show up often seem to need to have some discussion. They have questions about the budget to be answered. There's always some people who don't particularly understand why we're budget-wise we're doing something one way and not another. And I, for one, would like to see the budget articles on the floor at an open meeting.
Well, it allows for discussion and on the floor.
Yeah, and some of it can go fairly quickly, but there are always one or two things at least, if not three or four, that, those who show up because they feel they want to have some understanding and some say with what's going on.
Right.
And it is the budget is the biggest single item that helps a person understand how the town operates.
Yeah.
Anybody else can express their opinion.
A clarification on that, would you also include a Zoom? At the, simultaneously?
You asking me? No.
Well, your intention,
Oh,
you said you want people to show up.
yeah.
So if they show up by way of Zoom, is that equal?
Well, they certainly have the opportunity to ask questions and give opinions. I have not been a big fan of the hybrid meetings.
It's hard at an open, I don't know how you do that at
I
an
don't,
open
I
town
think you
meeting.
have to be present
I think you have.
to vote.
I think for
that's right.
that
I
particular
don't know that
meeting,
they
yeah,
can.
you will. For select board meetings, you have a policy that allows you to do it if one of your members needs to be remote, then it does
Mhm.
permit and allow others to participate remotely like
Right.
that. We don't typically turn folks away if they come in via Zoom on a regular meeting without.
But I think an open
But
town
town
meeting,
meetings-
there's a whole different set of rules that regulate that. Yeah, yeah. So we'd have to be.
Yeah,
mostly in
and the
person.
state
Yeah.
did sort of set rules on that only a few years.
Mhm.
Only a few years back when that electronic capacity started.
Yeah.
And at one point, as I recall, the state even balked at it a little bit about
They-
letting a selectman who was away participate
took it a little while to get
electronically,
it,
but
yeah,
then they
it wasn't-
finally turned around. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It wasn't
they
smooth.
wouldn't, I think they wouldn't like that in an open town meeting.
Well, we have the open town meeting, do we still have those remote devices for the clickers that we were using? So that
We still have them, whether we want to use them or not, another
seems
question.
to make the process go pretty efficiently.
They worked fine last year. There was one question that I think we still just want to have clarification. I don't think we thought it out, but
Mhm.
if there's a no vote on an article, and it was brought to our attention on the floor last year that someone who voted no or in the negative needed to raise a new or a reconsideration of that article. And so if you're voting by secret remote, someone would have to volunteer to say it was them that did it. And so that was mentioned on the floor, and I haven't sought out the opinion to see if
If it was on paper, it'd still be the same problem.
it would be.
And if they felt strongly enough about what they were doing, they would mind up.
Mhm.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Can I be clear, what is it's gonna be on the Tuesday ballot as opposed to?
Last year on the Tuesday ballot, the only thing that was there for budget articles was the ones brought by petition for provider agencies.
But it would seem to me in the past, they were also on the floor also, so.
They may have been. Last year they were on the,
I know the referendum, but I mean, we've changed it several times.
Yeah.
but I guess the question is, why should some of the budget be on Tuesday and the rest on Wednesday? I think it should be all of one or all of the other.
I think we're trying to reach as many people as possible on the provider agencies because that was an extra added thing to the town budget.
Right,
And
but it's a-
to
but
try
it's-
to get as many people involved in that rather than have 25 people show up and vote on things that really aren't what the governing body is part of.
Well, I have to disagree because I think that the provider agencies in effect are an essential contribution to the needs of the town.
So the less people you want to have vote on it, the better off you are. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily, but I mean, I think in the past, we've had discussions and it allowed for people from the provider agencies, just the letter that you've got in your packet today from Healthy Kids or what have you, or Scanuffa to come and talk to the meeting, the library director or Lincoln County Television. And I think that answered questions, just like you answered questions at the thing. But I do think that it, puts a burden on them. That I just think there's no logical reason to have one on the floor.
I'd prefer to have everything on Tuesday. And then try to reach as many people as possible.
Get people to come. and-
get people to come and be involved. We do have public hearing on the warrant. So
Right.
that is when people can come and ask their questions. If you don't feel comfortable coming in, you can do a Zoom and ask your questions on that. There are different avenues for that. You try to reach as many people as possible. Yeah, I love open town meetings, but the numbers have dwindled over the years. You know, we used to get like 250 people, then we might get 100, then we get 30,
Now we're down to what?
then you get
30?
like 20. You know, it fluctuates from 35 to 20, and sometimes if you're lucky, you get 50. So if we can reach as many people as possible.
Andy has asked for X amount of money for a particular project in a particular department. If if the people on Tuesday say no, where are we?
Yeah.
And Andy's got in other words, so we want $1.5 million for the police department. The people say no. Andy's got an unfunded police department at that point. They've said no.
Well,
What do you
as
do?
far as I always understood it, like school budgets always revert back to the previous budget type thing to keep moving. Is that the same on the municipal side?
I'd have to look in that particular instance. I mean, if you don't, for some reason, your whole budget needs to be delayed, you would operate presumably under that same budget from the previous year. But if there's a no vote on a particular article, it might just be a no vote. You might run into issue with your own charter.
Right.
In the exact example you use, because the charter says we will have a certain level of police department. And so we in conflict. So with that,
on
maybe we
Tuesday,
could.
people have not allowed you to spend the money to provide that, or the fire hydrants or what, and I just don't, whereas at the open meeting, I mean, there's always somebody says,
Yeah, so
So it's
a
a
floor
different-
vote allows,
Consideration.
yeah,
you know, if somebody, we recommend, we all recommend an amount and then it gives the, I mean, it really is up to the voting public to come up with that and approve that.
so
there's
the
a different
people,
amount
you know,
allows
the
that.
people want a fire department, and
Yeah.
it may be that they're not approving spending that amount, might even want more for all that, you know, but
Yeah,
at which, so it sort of leaves the town manager in a problem.
I had a question about how it's decided when the select board has a different recommendation than the budget committee, because there were a number of things on the warrant last year that had differences.
Yeah.
And that was one of the incidents that happened when one recommendation was voted no, and then somebody had to say, okay, let's
Right.
talk about the other.
And
guy.
somebody will always raise their hand and ask, why? What was
Yeah.
where's the disagreement?
And so how would that
So it
be
depends.
addressed if it were on a ballot?
yeah, it wouldn't be, right? Yeah, because you
Yeah,
wouldn't have
yes,
that, you wouldn't have a
it-
discussion.
You, on a ballot,
Yeah,
you'd
but-
have to have a number to vote yes or no on.
Yeah.
Right.
And when it was on the floor last year, there was to read to see what sum. So it could have been one of those two numbers. It couldn't have been a completely different number.
Yeah.
But on the floor, the way it was worded, but you wouldn't have that. God, I don't even know how long it would take to count. 4, 5, 6, 800 different responses to see what sum on a written
Yeah.
ballot, yes or no on a particular number. And the select board has the ultimate decision on setting the warrant. Both parties can still have the recommendation. It can still be noted what the recommendations were, but the article would have a definite number.
Okay, thank you.
And my question is a worker for elections. There's like 65 questions usually, aren't there? Do you know what it took for people to do 8?
Depends upon the person.
To understand
Yeah.
what they were saying on the 8 questions, that's
yeah,
another thing.
yeah.
And they couldn't talk to anybody,
Yeah.
so they couldn't ask.
Yeah, some people were
I've
frustrated.
heard that. I
at
understand there's a
8
lot of questions on there.
in one of
That was, that was A.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree with Josh. It would be nice to have everybody or more people giving their input. But getting to night meetings is difficult for people who are older. So I don't know. I don't know what you do.
At least in the summer, it's daylight savings time.
Yes.
It is really
Later.
true.
yeah.
Well, close to the
We
longest
need to
day of
get
the year.
creative. We need to get more people to, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get more people to show up, and it's a shame. And Josh says we.
Through the years, we've talked about Saturday meetings, but I don't know that anybody's actually asked the citizens
Oh,
how they feel about that.
for,
You know, I
on
mean,
a Saturday.
yeah, all right, we know what we're getting nights on a week, right, a weeknight. And so many towns do Saturday meetings, apparently with some success.
I know I can
What did you
speak
do
for,
on the island, Andy?
A weeknight. And with, towards the end of my tenure there, we were trying to bring people in by bringing committees in to table ahead of the event. We'd had a potluck the last year I was part of it. You know, so that brought a few more people in because they wanted to hear about what was going on. Some of it was related to what they'd be voting on. There's a presentation. and-
So I'm not sure it's really within our jurisdiction, whether it be a weeknight or a Saturday, but I'll just.
No,
throw
it's a good
that out,
question.
that-
It's a good question, because you look
some
at,
sort
you
of
look
a
at the
public,
weekdays. And most folks that have, you know, several different reasons, but I know the folks that I know that have, you can attest to this, that have kids and school age kids. So a Wednesday night's kind of hard to, you know, if they're 2 of them, 3 of them are in sports and they're going 9 different directions, it's hard to,
So some sort of a survey between now and then
Yeah.
might be something you'd like to talk about.
and that's really the crux of it. Is we'd all like to see more people involved
Yeah.
at the
Oh,
town meetings. Absolutely.
I think there's certainly a trade-off. I mean, if you want more people, then you do it on Tuesday night.
Oh, Karen.
You don't get, people that have questions really don't get a chance to ask questions or have a discussion, which is why I personally prefer having it on the floor, even though there may be fewer people. And I know, a few years ago when we had it on Tuesday on the ballot, I found it as a voter very dissatisfying. It was kind of to me personally, it felt like a useless exercise.
Yeah.
I was voting, but no opportunity to.
But you didn't have any, yeah, and that's the difference between having it written up as to what sum and approve or disapprove this sum, you know, and there's a big difference in just that language there, and you can't do that at the secret ballot. You only can do that at the open meeting, which
Right.
allows, I mean, I feel that it'll, like you said, as a voter, you know, and you feel like you have a little more control over that as opposed to, hey, this is the number, whether you like it or not, you know,
Right.
and you can have some input there, so.
So maybe,
Just need to get more people.
yeah, figure out how,
Probably
and
do that.
I don't know what actions have been tried in the past, but I remember when there used to be more than 100 people at the meetings, and
And
last
it's-
time it was,
I
I think, less than 25, and so maybe
I remember
try
that,
another way of getting more people there.
you know, about 10 years ago, or when they had the provider agencies on the floor, the subject was the Worthy Poor Fund. And it was a low level, and I pointed out an advisor to our financial planning that you're supposed to spend a certain percentage of your earnings each year, and we were way below that. And so they made a change on the floor to increase the Worthy Poor Fund. And what I'm suggesting is that if we put the petition provider agencies on the Tuesday ballot, there's no opportunity to come forward and say, well, that's not enough. Or let's do
Well,
something
if it's a
different.
petition, it's a locked in number and you're not gonna change it.
Yeah.
Well,
The difference there. Yeah.
okay, yeah,
The petition on it says specifically to raise this amount of
this
money.
is why I think that maybe the petition shouldn't be the only means of getting on the warrant, as I argued at the budget committee meeting last month.
Right.
And, but I'm thinking arguably you shouldn't have some of the, even if it's a petition item could, there are reasons why we might want to have the entire budget on Wednesday night rather than on Tuesday ballot.
Yeah, what you're saying, you could in theory have even the petition ones, it would be a fixed number though, it wouldn't be to what sum, it would be, this is they petition, the petitions come in, this is the number they're asking, and then it's just
There
simply
would
yes
be
or
no
no vote.
opportunity to adjust, to make, to
Yeah,
move
there's
that.
comment, yeah, but you couldn't change the number, which would be the same as doing it on Tuesday. Yeah, but you'd have, I think what you're saying, Bruce, you'd have.
I
you'd
guess,
have it
I guess
opened
I'm
up
just
to-
wondering about the logic
What
of
it
having
is.
some budget items voted
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
by ballot and others not.
And it wouldn't add, typically, Ian, do you remember how many
Calling it the film.
that is, if it added it to the, taking it away from the secret ballot to the open for the petition stuff, it wasn't a huge. amount.
There were 6, I think last year, 5 or 6 last year.
Okay, yeah, so it's not, it's not. a
Is
huge
there going to
amount.
be a standard form to gather signatures and a deadline for that? Because my folks would like to know.
For the policy, there's a deadline, third Friday in March is the deadline to submit those petitions. There is a form we can provide if needed. Frankly, most of them have their own they've been using for the last, few
In
years.
other words, you don't have an official form that you distribute to people.
There is one I can provide, but
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a copy of it. Could you give a copy to the budget committee?
I don't know if it's on the website yet, but we can get it up there. Yeah, some of them that we knew requested. Becky had reached out to all the ones that had been doing it. I reached out to the ones that hadn't had to do it in the last couple of years, so they were aware.
Okay.
One of which was out there on that Tuesday. 2 weeks ago. I think 2 were there. 2. Maybe.
I think I signed 2 things.
Okay.
Oh, there were more than 2.
Yeah,
I think some had already left.
When I went through.
Yeah, I think somebody said some of them had already left.
One's already been turned in.
if you do it on the weekend, I think there's a better likelihood you're gonna get more people. And I would be in favor of 1 meeting versus 2, putting everything in one place.
Yep.
Letting people have their say, and you could, if you did it early enough in the afternoon. You could accommodate some of the long commentary or whatever, which gets to be tedious at night for some people. If you may remember, some people got up and left. And so if you did it like, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. It might be a long meeting, but you get it all over with.
It's a lot of money.
Get a lot, yeah, and you get a lot of, you get a lot of.
Yeah. People will leave anyway. I mean, they're just people that
Yeah.
can't tolerate it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have any experience here, but been to many town meetings.
So.
They're not, you get the people that are not working that have the opportunity to come that may have not come otherwise.
So I like us to think about the Saturday meeting. I think we should consider that. Maybe that's just something as a takeaway for this group to think about.
Yeah, it's worth looking into, and as something we mentioned, that maybe, I don't know how you'd survey, get information back from people to see if they would prefer another night or another day or something, but I guess we've got to be creative and get more than 20 people in.
So you still have to have a secret ballot,
For some things.
something.
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
For some
yeah,
things.
so that was.
So you're not gonna clear it, you're not gonna clear it all out on
Right.
the
I mean,
Saturday. You're
I think
gonna-
mostly the
still
election
gonna-
of officers is one of them. I'm to look at the charter and see if it
Mhm.
really specifies which need to be that way or not.
It's a big enough issue that we have puzzled over for so long. It might be worth putting something in the paper, just a survey that people could either mail in or call or email or something. I mean, even if we got only 100 people who answered,
Yeah.
that's better than we're doing
It's better than-
currently
right,
at
it's
the
better than nothing.
town
Yes,
meeting.
so,
you know?
all right.
But right now we're just, we talk about it, but I've never actually in all the years actually seen us try to move forward in deciding yes or no on a Saturday. And the people that really need to answer that question is not you, it's those folks out there that are trying to get to come. Would they come?
Yeah, so it sounds like we're
Hmm.
majority or most in favor of doing the most we can on an open to floor
Yeah.
vote. But finding the best day to do it,
Great.
right?
The second item there is, the question about, is there a target? There's a lot of contributing factors. I mean, there's so much that's, well,
Real quick, if we could mention the Philbrook Fund by its name, instead of the nickname it has been going under for several years of Worthy Poor, I find that quite demeaning and
I think
with,
they are calling it that actually.
Yeah, with multiple negativity.
So
And I don't think that that's really very friendly and respectful of our town. It's bad enough to actually, or it's sensitive enough for some people to at least request it, much less have to wear the armband for the board. So that's my
I think we did that
2
last year.
Yeah, it's been
So
done.
I had a question specifically about that one, since it is a pass-through, that's a preset from the interest from the endowment. Does it need to even be on a warrant? Since it's not coming out of town taxes, it's coming from from the interest of an endowment, I believe.
Mhm.
You had
That's
mentioned
right,
that
yeah.
last time.
Yeah, but they have to decide what it will be, that's all. In other words,
Charter
it's not
dictate-
automatic what that amount is. We set it as a recommendation. There's no petition for that.
it wouldn't be, the select
No.
board is the trustees of the funds, and
So
so
you make.
it
the
may not
recommendation.
need it, it was in there, need to be,
Why
but
it needs public input, because it doesn't relate to the.
Yeah,
tax
I've heard
of
I've
the
heard
town.
it said several times, it does not need to be voted on by the public.
Hmm.
My only feeling about that is it has just always been that we get permission to spend any money, and that money is being,
Right,
that money does belong to the town,
hmm,
and you're asking permission to spend some of it.
the difference is it's a trust fund in which the select board is put in charge as the trustees of, just like the capital reserves and
Yeah.
and a lot of other
I'm just
funds
saying
that are
that's
created.
the flip side argument is
Hmm.
giving the people the right to,
Still asking for permission or getting.
yeah.
But-
That's
Just for
whatever.
clarification, it was
Yeah.
not the technique or format. It is just how we mention it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would
Oh, I agree.
prefer
Yeah,
we-
the
yeah,
Filbert
yeah, yeah.
over for the poor.
That's why we named it that back when we formed it, so, yeah.
It's also, it's stated in the will of the people that left the money to the towns, both towns, Waldeboro and Damariscotta, and so in the warrant last year, it was corrected to read as it was stated in the.
No, and I get that it goes to Worthy Poor. However, it is from the Philbrook, and that's how I think it'd be more respectful
Yes.
of our town to discuss it.
I apologize.
agree.
I used the wrong term.
We're gonna wind down.
Moving
here.
on.
Yeah, you had
So
a,
you
you got a,
about goals.
Goals.
I'm happy to go.
What would a goal
forward.
look like to you?
I don't know. I just know sometimes we can get to the end of a process and feel disappointed that it's as high, an increase is as high as it is, or we felt that we didn't cover and include things because we were worried about a budgeting, capping it at a certain amount. And so last year, being my first one, my direction was to let the board and committee know what I feel we need, based on what I was seeing. And so I don't know if, I don't want us to get through 3 months of work and then have people be disappointed that we brought forward a budget that was simply, higher than they were all
So are you
expecting.
suggesting like limiting a mill rate increase to 2% or 5% or 10% or something like that?
Oh, are you talking about COLA, or were you talking about dollar amount, or? was it
Any of
just-
those things?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, not on anything in particular, just like some places will say, well, we want to try and hit a target of no more than say 5%
Okay.
of an increase. And it's hard to say of a mill rate because there's so many factors in that
Okay.
you can't control doing just the municipal budget. Because the mill rate's made up of school and county and TIF, and then any new assessment or new valuation that is picked up. And so it'd be really hard to,
Okay,
in my mind, to kind of go forward with that target in mind, but a percent increase overall.
sure.
Is one that some places set out as a goal. And we do our best to try and hit it. Last year, I think we started with a presentation of, I think, close to 10%. And brought it back down, I think, to like 7 or 8. So I just want to put that out there before we spend 2 or 3 months putting all that effort in and feeling like that there's some disappointment in us for not putting forward what you were hoping as a target.
3 to 5 is always a nice number to work with, but whether it's realistic or not is,
Well, 3 to,
do the best you can.
well, if inflation's running at 8, then you limit it.
I know.
3 to
Well,
5.
3 plus
3.2.
This is not eight
Yes,
anymore.
historically, right. We've,
Yeah.
3 to 5 and, with COLA and whatnot, but with inflation, being up in the anywhere from, so I think like last year, we tried to keep it, in that inflation rate more or less. And on track with that, but we know there's gonna be some additions with funding some stuff that needs to get funded, so we gotta keep it in that ballpark anyway, but that didn't help you at all.
Jeffrey is needed.
I usually just vote no if I don't like the.
Right. He does.
It doesn't hurt my feelings.
Do the best we can.
I mean, really what it ends up meaning is you end up putting a couple things off. We wouldn't put forward something we think we'd like to see done this year or if it's not absolutely necessary and there's things that should be done, like a furnace, you got two rooftop units that we just found out one needs to be done and one should be done. It's coming from the service provider. So do you do 2 in 1 year or do you really just wait one more year just for cash flow and budgeting purposes?
Well,
So
the whole process is bottoms up as opposed to top down. So starting with a number and trying to, work down to it. It's better, I think, to go through each individual item here, all the factors, whether it's the inflation for that particular, like utility or heating or whatever it happens to be. And just dealing with reality one step at a time. And then if we have to press down, you gotta go back through the whole thing. It's a iterative process, but I think bottoms up is the way it's been working.
Okay. I can tell you something I'd like to not see. Several years back, many years back, someone had proposed rather adamantly that the proposed budget for every department be cut 10%. That doesn't work.
Doesn't business.
It does, because if it does, you don't get your rooftop stuff. In other words,
Yeah.
one department in this particular year is going to need this particular expense. Some other departments may not. So individual a total budget of X amount up or down is worth discussion. But a given percentage in each department gets very difficult to.
It happens all the time in business, all the time.
I know.
Almost every year it happens,
Yeah.
but somehow you manage, but I don't think we need to do that.
Well, that's why it's nice to have the budget laid out, presented as it has been with you don't just have one lump sum, you have every line item in there, where it goes to an explanation behind it. So you're right. It doesn't work just to, cut it out completely. So,
schedule real quick.
yeah, just based on that and sure everybody's on
Tentative
board.
schedule, I threw this out there. I want to move it a little bit, provide a little more time this year for both groups to do the discussion they need to per the charter. Last year, there was kind of a parallel process. In the budget committee per charter is really supposed to review the recommendation of myself, the departments, and then the select board. So the select board should have first review, and then it goes to the committee for their review of that. So I didn't create enough time last year really for that to happen that way. And so proposing that we do a budget presentation in early or mid-February. And then start from that February 12th, 14th is kind of the week of. We can discuss at another date, the presentation style. Do we try and do it in one sitting? Do we do it and say we're going to do it in 2 meetings? Stretching that out longer than it needs to will just push your calendar further out. Proposing 3 meetings each for each body to go through the budget review after you've heard the presentations. That may or may not be enough time as you get into it. But any questions or thoughts on that proposed timeline?
What's CIP?
Capital improvement plan?
And so the budget will be put together before the budget committee reviews the budget.
Correct. It's proposed to have budget books available February 8th, and then presentations would be the following week.
I know last year we tried to get involved a little earlier, and the question was seeing the presentations from the different departments simultaneously for the committee. So we're not going to do that this time.
You would. That would be my proposal, would be to have these two
Same
groups sit
meeting
together
with it.
together.
Okay, so
And
we
do
would,
the same
presentation.
we
thing.
would come to
Yeah.
presentations,
Yeah.
but then we would not meet as a committee till after that.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to say that before I left. In my 39 years in the town, this year is the first year that the budget committee has been able to come in before March and actually take part in some conversations and so on. And I appreciate it. I've long felt that members of the budget committee have felt that they weren't really meaningful at all because they're just looking at a number and saying yes or no, as opposed to actually trying to. So Andy, thank you for allowing us to do this, and hope we're able to get together some more times, before it comes down to a yes or no on numbers, so that we can talk about them, give our opinions, ask our questions, and so on. So.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to build in some time in there from January to February. I'm gonna have an addition to the family this year, so I'm hoping that it doesn't disrupt the schedule too much.
Not at all.
Um,
It won't, Andy. No, life will be normal for you.
I don't see that on your schedule.
Yeah, so trying to create enough time and, before I go out for that short leave to make sure that the budget books can get put out early February for you all, and then hopefully work through what's hopefully enough time for you to review. I put some tentative dates for the board to think about. So I put on the back a calendar, a 6-month calendar starting from now. I didn't specifically choose or not include certain holidays over others. This was just a calendar template. Look at the calendar proposed, look at that. If there's dates that we know are going to be conflicting around certain holidays, please share those at a follow-up meeting.
Possible. Yeah.
But just for context, I didn't pick those over one over the other, just a template that came out.
Okay.
I have a question.
Over there.
It isn't clear to me whether department heads are going to make presentations.
They will be. So that February 12th and 14th I had there would be 2 days I just threw up. Present FY25 budget and capital improvement plan. So it's got town manager, department head, select board, and budget committee.
Okay.
Same as we did last year with
Yeah.
the joint
Okay.
meetings for those presentations.
Oh, that's the SBBC.
Okay.
Oh,
Good
okay.
department heads, yeah.
Yeah, legend. I'll put a legend.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Don't mean to
Thanks,
tie
Carrie.
you up.
Real quick, on holidays, I would really appreciate it if the Jewish calendar was factored in. The holidays float each year, so it's not always a given date. And the holidays start at sundown and they end at sundown the next day. So there are some very significant ones like Yom Kippur. You would look at those every year. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Easter
I
rolls around,
concur.
too.
I think that's a valid request.
I think in the past, we've tried to keep them around the federally recognized holidays. If we go down the road of religious holidays, and I'm not speaking on that, I'm not knocking religion, but if we go down that road, there's going to be a long calendar of religious holidays we have to recognize. So I'm just putting that out there. So we did.
I do know that last year we had one or
Yeah.
more members of the budget committee who could not participate
Sure.
on a
sure,
particular
yeah.
day.
No, and it's fine, but we need to, if you go down that road, then open the calendar up. to
Yeah.
Every religious holiday, just so you know. So I think that's why we stuck, historically, the board stuck with federally recognized holidays.
Well,
just
and
to
at the
stay
very least with a
on that.
calendar.
Yeah.
With a calendar presented.
Yeah.
Gives anybody an opportunity to call back in and say,
Right.
I see a problem with that particular date.
So you're proposing we don't recognize any religious holidays?
I didn't say that. I just said we stuck with the federally recognized holidays.
Federally recognized
we-
religious holidays.
We can do that, but again, you're opening up every religious holiday that's out there.
Yeah, that's what I
So,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're only talking about the calendar for the combined
Right.
budget committee. If
Yeah,
There is a
that's- yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
we get
But it was
that.
brought up for select board meetings of last year. I'm just bringing that to attention. That's why the board,
So if you see a problem,
Sure.
tell him. and-
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm asking
so-
Andy, please, if anybody from the budget committee contacts you, we're expressing a difficulty with one of the dates that's been proposed. So you can.
yeah, and it can be moving, right.
You consider
out, so.
Yeah, I can.
All right.
A little louder.
Do we have
Say
any,
again.
before we
Did
adjourn,
you catch that?
anybody have
Karen?
anything
Andy?
else with the joint meetings before we move into the? We good? Karen?
Committee adjourned.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? We're out of here.
Right, and I think we can stay adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, Karen.
We'll just, yeah,
Open the.
thank you. Yeah.
I said it.
Adjourns, I mean, not adjourns, we've opened this, so.
We're opening the
People
select board
along,
meeting.
so.
Uh,
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Yep.
So I should stay. We have a whole select board meeting ahead here. You know, yeah. No, nobody, you're right.
But we're trying to reach more people.
Actually, Dick, you can, we can start changing that, so, yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll,
People cared.
we'll get, we'll
Open our
we'll get
eyes.
moving along. So what's that?
Seriously.
What's that?
These are for under.
Here you go. Oh, hang on. Let me get the, let me, we're,
No, do I have to have it back, David?
all right. Yeah, I guess no calls to order, already to order. So we're just gonna continue a continuation of my earlier call to order.
Okay.
So, all right, with that, did everybody get a chance to look at, we had the minutes, we'll go through some housekeeping here, the minutes of the
Did you see these?
18th.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 18th and the first,
We just
as
had
written,
the 18th, right?
18th and the first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Having a hard time hearing.
There you go, yeah.
Huh?
Tom, go ahead and,
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 18th and November 1st as written.
we don't have November
Oh,
1st. Yeah,
All right, sorry.
just the 18th.
All right, the 18th. Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the 18th.
All right, so Tom's made a motion to approve the minutes of the 18th. Do I have a second? All right, Andrew's gonna second. All right, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, was that everybody? Yeah, okay. Financial reports. So we have a payroll, warrant 21.
I'll make a motion to approve payroll warrant 21.
Thank you, Josh. Do I have a second?
Second.
Andrew seconds. All those, let's do discussion, sorry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Hey, payroll 21 and accounts payable 22. I'll make a motion to approve AP 22.
Second.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. All right. And citizen comments, general correspondence. Andy, you want to touch base on some of the, move up in our packet here a little bit. We had a few things come in here, right?
There were a couple.
Yeah.
A letter to the select board from FEMA.
Yeah.
There's a process they're going through called risk mapping, assessment and planning. It's a discovery meeting they're having coming up. I plan on attending that. They were just sharing that with the select board and looking for other community leaders that are aware of localized flooding concerns or issues if they want to attend and help populate their research as they're trying to identify these. So just sharing that as it came in, if you have questions on that.
Well, it was very interesting that I didn't see that Newcastle was invited to it, but it's in Newcastle.
I think this was specifically to the Damariscotta representatives that they knew of.
Okay, but,
I think each town in the area is getting invited to it.
okay. Oh.
That's how I
okay.
understood that. I mean, the list there is mostly our town. rep.
Okay,
Right.
we are meeting in Newcastle.
The meeting will be in Newcastle.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
I think the intention is to try and capture everyone in that Rivershed area.
okay.
And what do they use the output of, whatever this study?
That's a great question. I'm not certain.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming it might end up on a digital map of sorts for us to review as part of a flood risk index, perhaps. But I'm not
With the
certain.
goal of helping inform us about where we should pay attention to or something.
Perhaps. I mean,
Well, I'm sure that's going to be explained at the meeting. I mean, that's probably the purpose.
I think there's a lot of interest in understanding what infrastructure is at risk. It's kind of going beyond this point at just like the flood risk map immediately on the coastline, but starting to look at other areas that might be beyond. And so we think about like Castner Brook, for example, during certain rain events, not coastally influenced or tidally influenced. There's some big issues, and so they might just be trying to expand this risk map into something more than just coastal events or tidal events rather. That's most of the flood maps are about, really, is the tidal impacts and storm surge, and so it could be that, is my guess. But I plan on attending that one if anyone else is interested.
Yeah, I wanted to come.
Okay. Sharing charter communications just provided a very early acknowledgement that the franchise agreement will be running out in 2 years.
It took a long time to do the last one.
Okay, good to know.
So. help
What
me
does
here.
that
Does
actually
this mean that
mean?
they run the cables down the road or something like that?
This allows them, my understanding is it allows them to basically, run those in the right of ways. And that there's a certain amount of fee that comes back to the towns, the franchise fees.
Sure, yeah. So this is sort of like a natural monopoly as well, right? Or for a company like this, you wouldn't have two of these kind of
You
companies.
could.
You could.
It's my understanding is you.
Well, I was wondering about how LCI does it
Yeah.
for Tidewater. I mean,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, never thought of that one until I just
Well,
wrote it down.
Right.
Yeah. Because Spectrum, is this Spectrum or is it Charter Spectrum?
Spectrum.
Spectrum, Charter Spectrum.
So I think the last time we did it took quite a while to do it. And then I think we also got, received like a grant for an amount of money and it went to LCTV.
Mm,
We worked to try to upgrade some of their equipment.
okay,
So
part of this franchise agreement.
yeah. So
And this
we
somehow
may
must
wanna-
relate to broadband expansion too, right?
So the cable franchise is specific to cable
Cable
service. And
service.
so that's kind of been the big issue, I think,
Yeah.
with legislation is that so much of this cable stuff is now going on demand through fiber internet lines. So the franchise fees have been continually declining as more and more people kind of cut the cord, so to speak.
Yeah.
And do more on-demand services. So I think the legislation is trying to keep up with that changing market and making sure it's all kind of treated equally.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot can change from now to 2026. When
Yeah,
the agreement runs out, so I'm sure they are pushing to.
I was assuming there was a major change, which is why they were coming or just came.
So, but the last one did take quite a while to do.
And how long does it
I
last?
think Bremen and Newcastle are doing. They're going
Must
for
be
broadband, aren't
around 10 years.
And they're
Would this
asking
be
3
a
years out.
competitive bid situation if we wanted it to be?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, then.
But can find out.
No, I'm just curious, like.
I don't
if
understand it to be sole ability to run in the town, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Because understanding the poles, right? Somebody owns the poles and
Mhm.
people get different levels on them and
Right.
this is one of the levels that they.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, no one company owns all the poles in town. I mean, I think a lot of them are co-owned, it sounds like, or some might own some and one other company might own a few others.
Yeah,
Typically two companies in town, I think, that do.
there's what Tidewater and CMP usually the two owners of the
Right.
poles here.
Mm.
So I guess if you could just pull out the current one, just to kind of look down through and
Yeah, it might be nice to find out if we did get some kind of a rebate or whatever.
well, I mean, the franchise fee is basically a revenue that there's a certain percentage that comes into us. And then I think there's a library. Is there a library one on that or is that on the phone?
I'm not certain. The franchise fees, it's up to 5%. Last I knew could be
Yeah.
levied against on your cable bills.
Right.
The towns would get that local franchise fee. They just pass it on to the customer. And that's what typically has been coming in and what LCTV had been requesting is the franchise fees that we get.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's something I'll get more information to you on as it gets closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. We had a couple of letters come in from Healthy Kids and New Hope, Midcoast. Everybody get a chance to take a peek at those?
Mhm.
Yep.
It's nice to.
They were nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Couple of, we're the, what am I trying to say? You groups there,
yes.
so, yeah, all
Mhm.
right. And we can keep moving along. You get some, your manager report tonight, Andy? Sure. Hodgson Street's, mostly complete. There's a couple of small things I didn't get over there today to see if they hydro seeded or not, but they were planning on trying to hydro seed. Our engineer and Daryl actually joined us Monday to do a walkthrough.
There were a couple of punch list items, nothing substantial. Just a couple things observed, noted, that was passed on to the contractor to come back. They said they'd work it in the schedule probably next week. They're on a couple other jobs right now, but they said just let them know what we had and they'd come back and take care of that. So,
Yeah, look good. Some fairly minor stuff, but it looked, yeah, it's totally different up there.
Are all the
You
neighbors
walked
and
it.
abutters
I walk
happy
it all
now?
the time.
So Dan had asked if all the abutters and neighbors are happy. I did send an email today to our little committee that we had for that project that we created and heard back from one so far. So they just observed that, felt it was pretty wide compared to what it had been, which there were some spots which were I think 9 feet or so before we did this, and now it's a uniform 18 feet up to I think Mike and Kath's place.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gives you an idea of what could be up over the hill there. And there's another phase. I will say the striping, something we can look at when we do striping again. It was a little bit narrower when those lines went down. It was pre-marked at 3 feet, and then just when the company came in to stripe it, they tagged it just on the inside of the 3 foot mark. So they are a little narrower than we anticipated. That said, I mean, a kind of a complete street model approach would be more like a 6 foot wide path, truly for dedicated to bike and pedestrians. So we knew we couldn't get that and have the car lane. So I think we can kind of play with that. I think a little bit on our own next time if we go to 3.5 or maybe 4 feet, if we can try that. It'll leave you a 10-foot travel lane down the center, 4 feet each. But
Yeah, no, it looks good. And we have to remember that, that width came from getting the drainage.
Mhm.
It was necessary for to control that drainage down through there and make sure it can be plowed and cleaned and
Mhm.
cleared for public safety. So looks
Right.
good. Yeah. So nice. All right.
Perfect. The Public Works update. I haven't actually heard back today if the truck came back, but we were expecting the truck back yesterday. Had gotten that blower motor fixed for the heat and cooling unit in there that had failed. The roadsides have been getting cleaned up with the billy goat there, some leaves from around town. And then we're planning on taking the dock. We were going to take the docks out tomorrow. We're going to do it Friday. I forgot I had a MCOG General Assembly meeting all day tomorrow, and it goes a little quicker and easier with 3 people down there as opposed to 2. So we're going to do that Friday. They're going to do some cold patch tarring tomorrow while it's a little bit warmer.
And the tide will be okay.
Yeah, it pushes it about a half hour later in the day, but it's still high tide at like 1:30 or so. So there'll be time. We'll just take them out, put them in the park, and then come get them, let them sit and dry out a little bit, and take them to the town garage next week.
Water's nice and warm.
Air temperature's not
Right.
as bad. But yeah, I'm sure the water's a little cool. Last year, so it's about 2, maybe 3 weeks ahead of what we did last year, but just with personnel availability, just.
And the tides. too.
So all the aquaculture guys got their stuff in, or have you seen the activity from them?
My understanding is a lot of them we heard last night from some, generally speaking, and from the harbor master, a lot of them trailer their stuff, their boat when they want to use it, as opposed to leaving it on there. We know we take them out as the water starts freezing anyways. So
Yeah, I saw a big truck up there yesterday.
I saw some
loading.
movement today.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been
Loading,
activity bringing some in
yeah.
and out. Yeah. See, we're-
loading cages or whatever you call them.
Perfect. Comp plan, there was a meeting last week around active, I guess, recreation and active living, mostly bike and pedestrian infrastructure needs or desires. Dan and Andrea were both at that one. That was the third in that 3-meeting series to hone in on some key areas that were identified through the survey work. The other ones being housing and
The village, downtown village.
right. And so they were, I think each about, I missed the housing one, but I think my understanding was they were all about 25 to 35 people at each of them.
Yeah, they were all very well attended. Like this
Yeah,
room felt
I
really
think
full
it
when
would
we
be
did the
good.
housing one. So
I thought it was pretty good.
Nice. So that process is coming together. Dan knows more about that than I do. My understanding is that they are hopeful that and planning to have a town vote on it potentially as early as June at town meeting. And so that's the last I knew the target.
yeah, no, I think that's right.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're gonna move into the phase now of actually we've accumulated all this data and this information and input, and now it's like crafting sort of plans,
Strategies, yeah.
and plans.
Mhm.
So and it'll be before this group sometime in the early spring, I should think,
Yeah.
because I know we need to get it on the warrant. for, let me check the date.
Yeah, I talked with
Yeah.
Isabel about that and just kind of said, working back. So I mean, if we're approving the annual town meeting warrant April 17th, and working back from that for public hearings and
Yeah.
opportunities to have those and make changes if you need to. There's a possibility of creating it as a special town meeting for the same night as town meeting, just be on a separate warrant. You have to close one, open the other.
Mhm.
You could certainly entertain that if you
Yeah,
wanted
because
to.
it's gonna be tight, I would think, to get it for April, but.
Right.
But we'll see.
What
So I-
needs to be done?
I think Isabel was hoping to bring an update in December to one of the board meetings. I can't remember if it was the first or second one, but I'm encouraging her to, as it's getting closer to coming together, to keep the board informed. Is that something that you're all going to want to review as well, and before it goes forward for a vote? Yeah, so we'll see some more updates from that, but they are doing great work.
That's coming along. You guys are getting some folks.
There's
The same amount of people who go to the town meeting in June.
I think we got more than
Yeah.
going through the town
Sounds
meeting.
like it. We get to pass them out free tickets to the
Yeah.
town meeting, so.
Yeah.
Sharing just a quick update with the solar. We don't talk much about it.
Yeah.
Generally, it was down again for a few weeks this time. Tech came on site. I happened to be going by when he was there, so I stopped and talked to him, and there was another nest in that inverter box. Though it didn't eat through any wires this time. It didn't
Okay.
ruin anything
Yeah.
there. He said he went down and actually, after taking that out, saw that the switch of sort had actually been flipped down by the road. So it wasn't actually bringing power in.
So does that mean that would have required a person to do that?
Yeah, I get maybe a deer. I don't know. I didn't actually see the switch. Maybe an animal could have done it, but probably.
You think they'd have a lockbox or something for that, something like
An
that?
asset, Tom. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some way to secure it. Yeah.
I know. I think it talked about early on that we were supposed to do something to kind of gate the site.
Mhm.
Wouldn't stop someone from walking in through the woods
Right,
to
yeah, you
go
still-
in there, but it is something we probably should look at again and consider doing. It's not generating anything, and we're not getting what we want. The investors aren't getting what they expect. So I'm maybe just a little disappointed that it was my looking every once in a while on the website to see if it's generating and how much it's generating that caught it.
Yeah.
So I had started a couple of times
Oh.
to reach out and say, hey, checking in. Just a couple phone calls, and then I finally got a hold of someone that.
I don't think we caught it last time till we got the power bill.
Yeah.
There. That was like 3 months. So yeah, that was a surprise. So yeah, so
That's a capture of all of the months that since it's been running. You can see it largely went on in full capacity July of 2020. And that's every month since it's really been going.
Yeah. So, yeah, so in the interim, if there's a way to secure that, I don't know what that's got for a transfer switch, but some will have a simple spot to put a padlock on or
I
something.
think
but-
someone went and looked at it and saw the nest and turned it off.
No, there's no way to have seen the nest. It was up, the nest was up by the panels itself, whereas the switch that was flipped was down by the road. So it's about 150 yards.
That's
apart.
kind of weird. Yeah, okay.
All right.
List of meetings that might be of interest. Reminder, Friday next week will be off. Staff are going to be open to the public Wednesday before Thanksgiving in the morning as opposed to the afternoon.
Okay.
We're going to swap that. They did that last year as well. That's been advertised. Went in the paper, I think, this week, and we'll get it online so folks are aware. General Assembly for MCOG tomorrow. Dan's going to go up. I think Andrea might go.
I'm going.
So I have a couple folks there
Yep.
for that. Community Resilience Partnership meeting on December 5th. That's our partnership with Coastal Rivers and Lincoln County Regional Planning. Looking for community input on kind of next steps and where the community would like to see us look at and take interest in the resiliency work. And those are the big ones. The Shellfish meeting last night went really well, I think. It wasn't the annual meeting. They met again because there was some things going on. The state let us know that we don't have a shellfish conservation plan. And so every town that has a shellfish management ordinance requires a plan. Some just never send them in, or at least they don't have them on file. We're one of those that they don't have. So needing to create that, it can be pretty straightforward. It's not a long document, but they met to discuss that briefly, and they're going to meet again, I think, in December to talk more. There's an anticipation for a December notice for funding for work that would support the Shellfish Committee. Last year, I think they said there was $20,000 available in the program and $5,000 awards at a, max amount of $5,000 per award. So that's funded some of the research that Darling Marine has done in the river in the past. And so I think they're interested in trying to continue answering some question. And I kind of raised the question about, is there some conservation efforts or measures, seeding, for example, of the flats that they'd like to try with that money, and maybe run some studies on. And I think Tom and Andrea were at that, but I thought that conversation went pretty well.
Yeah, they seem to be engaged as far as wanting to do more research on the decline in the soft shell clam. So, it was a pretty active meeting, and it was long, and it was people involved. It's good.
Good. That wraps those up. All right, well, nothing to add there. We can keep moving along. We have a building reserve appropriation to consider. Oh, a briefing on that, Andy? Yes, so we need to turn the heat on came a little bit earlier than most would like this year, and so we did turn it on a couple weeks back, both upstairs and down. And downstairs in the police department, it was about a 3 or 4 hour window. The temperature was set, I think, at maybe 68, and it was 66 and declining after that time frame. And so maybe we should have someone take a look at it. And called Midcoast, that's who's been servicing our systems, and replaced one of our units last year. And they let us know that one of the units needs to be replaced. The other one, there's 3 in total. One needs to be replaced. The other one should be replaced. One was just done last year. Kind of do wish I had known that 3 of 3 would need to be done in a 2 or 3 year window, so we could have explored the other more efficient options if there are some that we could have looked at. We did just buy the one last year at 23, or about the same price as it is here. So I kind of feel like we're knowing that one has to be done now. Kind of feel like we are a little hand tied to proceed with those again. Don't quite have the full balance as presented to do both this year. I do think there's some cost savings that I could try to ask about, because they do have to crane the unit in, and if we do them at the same time, we can avoid the second crane fee next year.
How much do you think the crane fee is?
I'm gonna assume it's probably about $2,000 by the time you get a company to come in and commit a day to be here. Put one up, take one down. I don't remember how long exactly they were here last time, but probably 4 hours or so anyways they were here. Plus wherever they come from. I don't know if it's something they rent, or I think they bring someone in for it. So I'm hoping that we could get that down if we can. I think we could do both this year. We would use all of what we have in the reserve, which is a balance right now of approximately in the capital improvement plan draft that I gave you, I've got a couple of payment amounts in there. There's about a $2,000 expense for door repairs. That hasn't happened yet. I'm putting that in there in this plan just so I can see what that would look like. I put one of these replacements in there up to 23.5. So with this year's contribution of 25,000 in the beginning balance from the end of last year at 22, it'll leave you with 21,000. So if we can get that price down a little bit, I think we could do both. And we could use our operating budget for the door repairs as just service fees. So if you want to consider doing both of those.
If there's some, if it has to be done next year, we know they need to be done now, but one needs to be done now. It'd be nice to see if they can get us a bulk discount.
They run year round. If they're not pushing heat, they're pushing cool air. My understanding. So
Right.
I'd say pursue trying to negotiate to get that so we can fit it within that number.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So might need to modify your motion from what I recommended, potentially. If that's what you'd like to do.
Well, if we have to just do one, then we have to just do one.
Yeah.
I think we need to.
But you've got to find, so you've got to find out. So we don't want to appropriate up to 25 because we can. So
I guess you can make a motion to purchase one with the option to negotiate to try to do 2.
Right, but one is 23 and the other one is 46.
2 together.
Because there's 2 of them.
Yeah, it's basically double.
Oh, that's 2 together. Okay.
Yeah, the estimates are it's just doubled.
Okay, so
that's
this is
one,
one and that's for
doing
2. Okay.
And the proposal, or Josh's suggestion would be that.
I'd just say, you know, if we can only do one within the confines of a budget, then we have to do one.
Yeah.
But it will give you the option to negotiate to try to get the second one within what monies we have available in that reserve.
Okay, all right.
So.
Is that a good enough motion?
No, but if you wanted to, I think we need to acknowledge the bid policy that we have. Even one of them, I think, puts it over.
Right.
So if you
Right.
wanna
Yeah.
acknowledge waiving that, policy as we've had to do in the past, and we don't have the time to put something out to bid and
Right.
wait. I mean, one of them we know needs to be done. And then if you wanted to, make the motion to authorize the purchase of both, two units, as long as it falls within the balance of the municipal building reserve, I think that would satisfy.
Yeah, so good. Josh, I'll let you start it with it. You're gonna carry that one through.
No, you can do it.
We agree.
All right.
We agree.
All right, fine. I'll make a motion to waive the bid procedures in the town charter, section 510. And authorize the purchase of, at the very least, one rooftop unit up to 25,000, but if we can get both of them within the operating budget, that
The reserve.
reserve budget, thank you, not operating budget, reserve budget, we
Mhm.
should do two if we can do it.
Mhm.
I'll suck it in.
Makes sense.
Good job, Daryl.
That should have been yours. You
Hey.
started it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that long drawn out rambling motion there, so,
Okay.
okay. And that, I think that's all we had for official action. You don't have anything else added in there on us?
I did not.
Yep, all right. So, Andy did send us all out a nice long
No.
packet here of
Sure.
some capital improvement plans. I don't know how far you want to get into this tonight, if you want to do an overview, or if anybody has any questions on it, or maybe just run it through how you laid it out, and I know we've all looked at it and whatnot, but
I
I
have.
have to be honest, I didn't look at it
Figure
very
a little bit
thoroughly.
So it's something that I wanted to do sooner, but it's on our list this year to try and get some, capital improvement plan in front of you. Last year's budget process, with a lot of it still being new and still learning, I put forward, I think, a 3 or maybe even 5-year kind of outlook in the budget paperwork. So this one I'm trying to look out 10 years. Fire department made it easy because they already had a 10-year outlook. I have not come back to talk with the chief about the building improvements. One of the things that happened last year was the furnace. This year, the furnace let go.
Yeah.
Literally. And so one of the things on his 10-year radar was to replace that system with a very different type of system. So
Yeah.
there's things there. I did talk with Jason a little bit about the police reserve. So this is, from what I've heard from the department heads, or have seen or observed, or from the road, when you get to the road section, what that road inventory suggested we might want to consider. What I have not done yet is gone through with this in detail with all the department heads, haven't gone with the Public Works Committee to really spell out what that looks like,
Mhm.
and their thoughts on my assumptions. But it is at least letting you just see where I am at the moment. My hope is that this is something that'll be available in a more refined way for the budget process, so you can see, the
This is
bigger
good.
impact.
Yeah.
So each page, with 10 years, it kind of gets to be a lot, but so each, that first page, there's kind of like, it covers the same reserve funds in 3 pages, because each page has 3 years at once. So
Mhm.
it might take a
Right.
minute to kind of realize that. The digital version I can share with you, so it might be easier just to go across the screen, if you
No,
want to
this
view
is
it that
fine.
way.
Yeah.
But
This is
it
good.
kind of goes through and captures a lot of it. I know I'm missing a few things probably. We get to the sidewalk section. I think that one, there's a lot of maybe unknown numbers, and I didn't really build that out. We haven't done a lot of sidewalk work since I've been here. The road numbers are based on contracted prices from this year. Some of them are the sidewalk numbers I do have are based on estimates. Like the one we have in there is the School Street one in there. So the sidewalk work, street in particular, we've got an estimate from an engineer on, because we submitted that grant with the DOT, so we have an estimate for that. the multi-use bi-lane on Route 1. Again, it's still just an estimate as they're going through the design, but I'm using those numbers to kind of have as some guide.
Mhm.
So that's a little looser. Um, some of the equipment for the highway, there's a long list of it. Some of it's not as expensive as some of the other departments' equipment lists. If you look, and I have, since I've shared this, I've built out the last page of reserve funds there, cemetery, landfill, basically to be more consistent with the ones that are filled out there. So I also broke it out further. So at the bottom of each reserve cluster, you have the total expenditure estimated over that 10-year period in the estimated cost column, and then for each year what that expense might look like. The next row down was the estimated appropriation, or what we would bring in from on a warrant article through the budget process. I did expand it below that, instead of merging potential grants we know we're getting right now with the appropriation. So, this year I think we appropriated 515,000 for the capital reserves, and to kind of blend that with a grant balance that should be coming in for, say, the parking lot project of maybe $1 million next year's budget, kind of skews what we're raising. And so I just split that into two, so we can kind of track the grant separate from the appropriation.
Yeah.
You don't have that on here yet, though.
Not on this particular printout, no. It's in the digital one, which I can share.
Yep.
So it just gives you a sense to kind of look at, very high level, needs refinement, but just to kind of see where I'm thinking, if there's major things in there that you'd like to see it maybe laid out slightly differently, or I'm missing something.
I think it's a good starting point right now, and then we can just kind of the next month or so, just kind of look everything over, and Public Works will meet at sometime pretty quick anyway, so.
Super. It doesn't capture a lot of what's going to be coming from the comp plan. Some of it might be in there only because it's been talked about for 15 years.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So you might see some things on there that were being discussed, but there's going to be, and it's a good timing, because I do worry in some way about the comp plan, only in the sense of what can we afford to do when it comes to truck replacements or comp plan endeavors, or just general board or community needs. And so housing being a big one, it's like, well, currently doesn't fit in what we're doing. So what does that look like from a financial standpoint? And we start to see that potential total impact, regardless of when we do it, it's still a need. It becomes a big number.
Yes, no, Andy, thank you. It's very well laid out and very comprehensive here, so.
And I did assume, I have a note here just to mention, I did assume for projects that wouldn't happen, or expenditures that wouldn't happen for a few years out, I think just to try and keep it simple, a 3% per year increase. So if we get to 2026, it's going to be 9% increase from the estimate of this year. Again, it's a real rough application, but we get to acknowledge the cost will go up. So a fire truck, and one of the things John needs to look at, and he mentioned to me, is the fire truck replacement cost, was kind of thrown in a couple of years ago. It's like, well, now it's gonna get closer, 3 years out or so. Let's get a refresh on that number. And make sure it's
Cost
closer.
like 15% or 17% a year. I think they
On the board approved an electric truck,
Plug it in.
Wow.
Well,
Those might not be there yet, but
Things are coming.
yeah, the police cruisers, I think they've got some.
Yes, they are.
So I have just a question, not to be difficult, but like the fire station. So all the expenses in the first 2 years, it looks like. Just trying to make sure I know how to read this thing. And then there's just an allocation then for the next 8 years. And so by the fiscal year 34, there's $400,000 in there with no expenses for the last 8 years.
Right.
Does that make sense?
For
example,
in my mind, it does, only in the sense that what we're looking at having to do is replace a roof on a building that was built in the early 2000s.
I think it was 90
something, wasn't it?
So that would be out
so
beyond 34.
We know we've got another roof replacement coming 30 years from now, probably. And so I guess in some ways, do we want to keep funding some of these reserves where these expenses will be coming back, and we can fund them at smaller amounts, more manageable level over time? Or do we wait for it to be 10 years down and say, okay, we got to find a way to fund?
So the roof roof replacement for the firehouse has been an ongoing thing for probably 8 to 10 years now, so.
I mean, the fire department was one where they've had a 10-year outlook, and there's a reason why there's $180,000 in this year's $515,000 cap reserve budget that's going to the fire department, because
Mhm.
they've been looking 10 years at a time. Some of the other ones, we haven't had that outlook on.
Yeah.
And I think we're realizing that we're somehow needing to catch up with the costs that are coming.
Yeah, we were fortunate the last fire truck we bought, we had the money already ready to roll, so we actually saved money because we
Yeah.
paid a certain percentage when we ordered it.
Mhm.
So,
It'd be nice to think that we can anticipate within a couple of years, a failure on heating system.
Mm,
As
right.
opposed to being, oh, I had no
Yeah,
idea
here we
that
go.
at
Yeah.
15 years or 20 years, it was going to need to be replaced. Well, we do, because
Mhm.
some of these things do have
Mhm.
expected life
Yeah.
cycle. So I think, some years, maybe try, in my mind, I'd like to try and find a point where, at what point can we build up our appropriations each year to be so it can get level? And not see
Yeah. these
100,000
spikes
this
is-
year.
Well, I mean-
Oh, well, hey, that dropped off. We just bought that roof, so we don't have to raise that.
right. But we can put it in a different
Right.
department.
And think about ways to try and levelize that. And I think in
Mhm.
some places, some towns will look at trying to adopt a policy to say, okay, with the capital needs being really something we can forget about, but a big part of your budget, whether it's debt, paying interest on the capital needs, or paying a form in advance through the reserves, because there's a large portion of your budget. Having a policy that kind of locks in a target to say we'll fund no more than say 2% of your total valuation, or 5, whatever number. There's some practice out there that some will try and follow. Auditors can maybe help us with a target there if we want to ask about that and create a policy. At least for the moment, just putting this out there so you can see what all of the needs might be.
Mhm.
I can tell you this is a lot better than when I first started on the board, because it was, oh, we need 25,000 for that. When? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice seeing it stretched out.
Mhm.
What do you need it for? I don't know.
And we should be forward thinking with everything.
Mhm. We never had goals, and we never had a capital improvement program.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
One that I know would probably surprise folks is when that boat launch needs to be replaced, because again, it's infrastructure. And it does have a useful
$500,000.
life.
I saw that one.
Absolutely.
That's totally a guess, and that's an assumption that we build it out further.
Mhm.
But again, that's a guess on my end right now.
Mhm.
I think what I did is I looked at what Bristol just put in down by Contented Soul.
Mhm.
I forget what that park's called, but whatever that park down there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Near the,
And looked at the length of that, looked at the award that was given through the DEP. I think it estimated a $500,000 price. And so I just took that number, given that it would probably be similar length and construction.
Now we'll probably have to get that done before they do the backpacking loan anyway.
Won't be before. But probably I'm gonna, that's one there that we probably should just always
Sorry.
look at. Structural assessment on the sand shed's another one, just so that we know, like, what's an engineer look at and say, hey, you got 10 more years, right? You got 30 more years. Great. Okay, we can kind of delay the start of that one if we need to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then you can
But
plan your
looking at
time
that
fly-
like that.
line
Again, the
and
boat
your-
launch would be similar, having someone kind of give us a
appropriations.
sense
Mhm.
of, do we see deterioration starting? I think that's got an asphalt surface on there, and I'm not sure what's under it. But you
Yeah, I-
understand how those were built is a big part of it.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like this form, I think in the past, like Josh said, they didn't have anything, and then we went to like a generic number and say, let's appropriate X amount of dollars into this capital reserve, but seeing it laid out, stretched out, and why, and what those expenses go to is very, very helpful, Andy. Thank you.
Yep.
Plus you printed out, you spent a lot of time on this. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions, comments on the capital reserve draft here?
I'll keep looking.
All right.
Yeah, as
Poking
questions come
away.
up, do reach out. I'm hoping again to have the kind of more fleshed out in January when that budget stuff comes out.
Pass them down to Josh down there.
Already signed
Oh, you
it.
signed it? Oh,
Yeah, we
gotcha,
both
okay.
did.
We both did.
Well, we'll
You.
move through the select board discussion items this evening. Start down here with Tom.
Want to thank our chief of police for saving us some money by sanding and patching and painting the hallways. I was out over here November 7th voting and I passed by and I saw them doing all the walls and stuff like that. So we didn't have to pay somebody to do it. So that's good. Did a nice job.
He's a painter too.
Yeah. And then reminder, November 21st, the select boards or representatives of the select boards from South Bristol, Waldeboro, Newcastle, and hopefully us will be at this meeting on aquaculture, and contacted LCTV, and they're gonna record it and also broadcast it, because it looks like we might have a large crowd, and the capacity keeps changing when I talk to different people over there. I was told initially it was going to take accommodate 100 people, and that's standing for 3 hours. So that they didn't tell me that, but anyway. So now they say you can do 35 people. So with that, I called Larry and asked him if he could broadcast it. And at this point, I haven't heard about well, let's leave it at that. No, I just want to remind everybody, it's 6 o'clock, November 21st at Coastal Road.
Awesome. Thank you for putting that together. Dan?
Just a little shout out to Becky at town meeting or town election day there.
Oh, yeah.
Cheryl called in sick that day, and so this was her very first time having to run an election all by herself without Cheryl as a backup.
Oh,
there. So
wow.
she did really well. She and I was only a little worried about her, but she did great.
Yeah. She handled herself. Yeah.
Yes. So,
And we were open to the public for been a while, I think, on voting day that we had been. With Cheryl out, we realized that we wouldn't do that again because we didn't have really the staff flow to really make that run well. But they did do it. They did try, and there were people that did some business while they were here.
I was surprised. We got closer to that day. I said, usually we have that discussion, on a previous board meeting about being closed, and they're like, oh, I guess no, we didn't discuss it. No, they're open. So yeah, it was a little hectic though.
But they were okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they did a very good job. It was very smooth.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Andrea. Thank you.
So one of the things that came up at the rec meeting was, okay, I'm really like determined to have a park. And so almost every table agreed that we would love to see that park happen in back of Bangor Savings. So how do we like start something like that? Like, do we put something together and then approach Bangor Savings? You know what I'm talking about, right, Andy? It's that fenced in area. And someone else said to me, well, I heard that Bangor Savings was putting in a park. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. So there's all sorts of rumors flying. They're just rumors. But if we really thought that that would be a perfect place for a park with water access to the back there, how do we like actually go about and make it happen?
And I think in that particular instance, I mean, just to know that, the representatives from the bank and myself have had conversations about the use in the future.
Okay.
They need to come up with what they need to come up with, but more generally, if the town is interested, just like any other entity is interested in buying a parcel for any particular reason, you might have those conversations in a strategic way, like you can exercise your executive session privilege as you formulate your plan and your ability to purchase and all of that. But a couple ways I guess you could approach it.
Okay. Like, I mean, we would need to look for funding. We might need to look for, donation. I mean, I don't know.
There's a lot to it. I mean,
There's
the money is a big
lot
part
to
of it. And right now there is no reserve fund for land acquisition for housing or parks or any of that type of stuff. So, you're at a little disadvantage. So you would rely on partnerships, I would think.
How large a parcel is it?
Not large. There's a few pieces. I think the way that property is laid out, the ownership is laid out, I think over a couple parcels. I think one had transferred a couple years ago to an abutter. So I think there's either 2 or 3 parcels back there in total.
It's not a huge area, but it would just be like the perfect place to have.
So in your conversations, do they think about a price or anything? Or they're willing to sell it, or?
that has not come up.
Okay.
Okay.
But I know there was there has been discussion about water access, for the public.
Right. And that bank there is a little scary because it's falling in. I mean, it is,
Oh, not the bank institution, like the institution of the bank.
No, not the bank.
Oh,
Not the bank.
the embankment
But
down
the
by
bank-
Start around the bank or savings here.
And they're a big institution, so this is just one little, facility that they own, so. But
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, I haven't heard any rumbles of any long-term plans. I think as much as as much as everybody knows as far as what they're planning on doing long-term, but we get that question a lot downtown with, what's happening over there.
I
It's, yeah,
know,
no, it's
I know.
private,
People
it's a
ask all the
private
time.
property and,
Right,
right now they can.
so if
take
you
it
think
and
of a
stop
way
and-
that we can start to make something happen, especially with the comp plan coming up and all of that. Because it is on the people's minds besides having more sidewalks and this, that, and the other. It's just like a beginning of what people would love to see in our village.
Heard. Josh?
I'm good.
I knew that was coming by the look on your face. So.
He's like, are we done?
I won't add too much. I'll be brief. I said I didn't get the thing they took off, but having the budget committee here, it's nice to have some joint meetings lately. We've had some joint meetings with Newcastle Select Board and some representatives there, and having the budget committee in. And I think and Dick had mentioned it too earlier, that we go about our business kind of separate. We all feel like we're in a little bubble, and it's always nice to meet with some of the other committees sometimes and kind of know what's going on and whatnot. So it's usually always very beneficial. So.
And I
thankful
think
for
what
that,
we
yeah.
did last year with the budget committee was really good. That we had those meetings
Yeah.
together, so it
Yeah.
facilitated things.
Yep, no, definitely. So that's all I have. Oh, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Entertain a motion. Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Everybody sign the warrants?
Yep.
We're good.